if you want more.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
All right. Today we have Stevie Rachelle. It's an interview from, about a week ago. We get it talking a little bit about Metal Sludge celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. We'll talk more to him with him about that as the fall approaches. He's got some pretty cool stuff in store that he's not quite ready to share at the moment, but I'm sure we'll be in on that. We spoke about him getting the rights to the debut record from Tuff, and kind of some behind the scenes stuff on that, a little bit of sludge stuff, and a little bit of Packers football. So check it out. Feel free to share it, and feel free to comment. All right. Thanks. So waste some time with Jason Green. I am not. So running late. So sorry about that. But he is one of those guys that I think when I was doing more stuff for Sleaze Rocks, if you recall, you're the guy that connected me with Chris and Neely from the Classic Metal Show. And right. I did a thing where I added some of the people that were doing like the podcasts and stuff like that I really enjoyed. Obviously, right. Classic Metal Show is more of a online metal show. Jason right. Green was on there. Who was it? Chuck Shute, and all those guys. Right. So, I mean, they're all off and running. Rob Lane, too. I think they're all off and doing their own thing, which is cool. I think maybe I'm on to something as far as finding people that are talented at that kind of thing. So, except for the metal show guys, which I've become kind of somewhat friendly with.
You mean the Classic Metal Show?
Classic. Oh, that's right. Ooh, I'm sorry about that. They're gonna slap me in the head for that. But yeah, the Classic Metal Show. So you're the one that actually got me connected with Chris and Neely. So thanks for that.
Yeah, they're great guys. As is Jason Green and Johnny. Mm-hmm. I like their thing, and Chuck Schute's doing his. And mm-hmm. I've known Rob Lane for a long time. I knew him when he was in his band called Teenage Casket Company.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he was in a band called Teenage Casket Company. This is like 2004, 5, 6. And at some point when I first started to manage Veins of Jenna, the band from mm-hmm. Sweden, we actually went to the East Coast in the summer of 2006, right about the same time we were signing our deal with Bam Margera. And we did some shows on the East Coast with a band called the Erotics out of New York mm-hmm. with Mike Trash. And then Teenage Casket Company, and Veins of Jenna was the baby band opener. They had only been a band for like a year and change, and we went and did some shows on the East Coast with him. So Rob's a cool guy.
Nice. So, I mean, with you've always kept busy doing gigs with Tuff and stuff like that. But one of the cool things that you did is you released the remaster of what comes around goes around, and I picked it up on CD, which is my preferred format. But tell me about that, retaining the rights to the album and what that process was.
Not an easy process, for the longest time. Fans have said for years, like, why don't you call up Atlantic Records and ask them if you can get your record back? I'm like, well, it's just not that easy.
Right.
I mean, it's like if Warner Brothers shoots a movie with, say, John Candy in 1999, and then for whatever reason it doesn't see the light of day, it gets shelved or whatever, the family can't call up and go 15, 20 years later, like, hey, you never put this out, or you did, but it went straight to video. Can we get the rights to it now? Even if it bombed, Warner Brothers isn't going to give it to them, nor Paramount or Disney or any of these companies. So, of course, I was thinking, Atlantic's not giving it to me. But then at some point, I did see like Rock Candy had released a bunch of reissues, more of a official label per se. Deadline Cleopatra did that with some records. And so at some point, I said, maybe I can figure this out, and I launched RLS Records in 1994. Right now is 29 years this week.
Wow.
Since we released Fist First independently on our own. And over the years, I've done dozens and dozens, upwards of 100 releases. So I thought, well, let me just start digging in. So I started making calls and emails and trying to knock on doors, so to speak, asking friends. And then I saw the guys from Kix, who were also on Atlantic Records at the same time we were, and they had reissued stuff with like Bo Hill remastering it or
Right.
remixing it. And I was like, okay, let me reach
Yeah.
out to the guys in the Kix camp. I talked to Mark Shanker, the bass player who does the business for the band, and he gave me a name. And then at some point, Steve Brown from Trickster, him and I are good friends. Steve Brown's like, you got to talk to this guy. He works through Warner Music Group and Rhino, and he knew a couple of people. So I just suddenly I had a couple of people, that led me to the proper personnel. But once I got on the phone with the woman who was in charge of, licensing and quote unquote catalog, which could be anything. It could be anything that Warner Music Group or Atlantic or Elektra put out through WIA, which is now controlled by Rhino Entertainment and Warner Music Group. There's all these different divisions.
Right.
I finally get a woman on the phone, and I'm guessing just by, I've seen her images and we've talked. She's like about a 40-year-old black woman. She was in kindergarten when we were on MTV. She knows nothing about my band. She's like, who are you? What did you do? So I'm explaining it all to her.
Right.
And, long story short, went through a lot of hoops, but at some point it got approved. I got an official, license to reissue it, had to follow some protocol, pay a fee. And then, in doing that, we had to follow certain guidelines. Like when we redid the artwork, the album cover has to stay the same.
Right.
However, what was on the back, we turned it into a gatefold. The way we put together a quote unquote, color page insert with lyrics and photos,
nice.
All of that could be kind of tweaked and altered to make it a remastered, reissue deluxe package. But they wanted to just approve it,
Yeah, right.
So kind of had to slide them the art, and they go, this looks good. You need to tweak that. You can't put this. The verbiage on the copyright has to read accordingly and such, so you have to kind of follow some of those things. But for the most part, once we got it, it was off and running, and just a lot of follow-up detail,
Right. And the big thing is now you have that out on vinyl for all the folks that are part of that resurgence. So tell me about that process. I mean, was it, I think you always read stuff about pressing plants kind of having those delays and stuff like that. So give me a little bit of insight into that.
In doing RLS Records, we had, when we first reissued, when we released Fist First in 1994, we did it on two formats, CD and cassette, which at that time, this is late 93 going into 94, cassettes were still selling. And I've talked about this previously a few places. Our sound scan for What Comes Around Goes Around in Atlantic Records for our debut did about 100,000 copies, right? I have physical sound scan sheets that'll show what we sold in what week and what month. And at some point in around 1992, a year later, we were creeping up on 100,000. Out of the 100,000, the formats sold in America were CD and cassette. I'm going to ask you, I don't know if you know the answer. How many do you think were CD and how many do you think were cassette? This is 91, 92.
91, 92. I'd probably say 92. I'd probably go with like 70% of that. The sales were cassette.
Correct.
Was it? Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cassettes were like 80,000 units. CDs was like 15,000 units.
Right.
So at that point, the cassette was still selling and vinyl was just kind of getting removed.
Phased out, right?
Because
yeah.
when Skid Row and Warrant came out in 89, they were on vinyl.
Right.
Bands that came out in 89 and even early 90 had vinyl releases. But, the cassette was slowly taking over, or the CD was slowly taking over and getting more and more popular, and the cassette was slowly fading away. So 3 years later in 94, we put out the CD and cassette. The first 1,000 of each sold simultaneously. Then we printed another 1,000 CDs and another 1,000 cassettes. And this is, now going into the late part of 94. Now the CDs started selling like this, and the cassettes just literally died. And then, we had to print another run of CDs. And so at some point over the years, I probably printed about 8,000 CDs.
Oh,
The second run of 1,000 cassettes, most of it is still sitting in my
oh,
garage.
geez.
So
Wow.
yeah, they kind of went like this, and then the CD just took off, and the
Hmm.
cassette died. And so
Yeah.
Tuff's debut was released on vinyl over in Europe, but only in Europe. So there
Mm.
was really, limited copies, hard to find.
Hmm.
Um, and then so in getting this done, I'd never done a vinyl record before, even though I'd done all other formats, including
Right.
DVDs and VHS boxes. But I went to Rainbow Records, and when I got the initial quote, it was 500 pieces, was like $3,500.
Mm.
I was like, whoa, I mean, I can get
Right.
1,000 CDs for $1,200.
Right.
But I hadn't made, vinyl, and it was a dinosaur product essentially, but it was
Hmm.
starting to come back, and the valuation of it is obviously way up, but the cost is way up as well. So to
Right.
make a vinyl record today is going to cost the customer anywhere from $7 to $10 each to make it.
Mm.
Unless you start making many thousands like the bigger bands. But
Right.
found a vinyl plant, went through that whole process, and there's a lot of particulars. To master a record for CD is different for cassette.
Hmm.
It's also
Right.
different for vinyl, and the same thing with you lay out the artwork. Maybe your cover art's the same. It's a
Hmm.
square. Here's your CD, here's your vinyl, but the CD is a booklet. This has
Right.
got a big page or two. This is a platter that's 12 inches versus a piece of plastic that's like this.
Right.
Everything, the artwork's got to be realigned. So the artist is doing 2 sets of artwork. You're doing 2 sets of mastering, which we did with the reissue, a CD
Right.
like you got,
Hmm.
and then the vinyl. A lot of moving parts, and cost a pretty penny, but in the end, it's sold fine. People love it. Great
Right.
reaction, and
Yeah. I
I'm
mean, it's
still
amazing. It's amazing what people pay for vinyl. I mean, I have a friend that owns a record shop, and
right.
I forget how many copies of Metallica, the new Metallica record he's sold, but every now and then I take a look at on the wall where he has them up on the shelf,
Right.
and that's like $35 a pop. I'm like, shit, I got the CD for like 12.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and he even says so. I mean, he says vinyl's outselling the CD. He sees it firsthand, so it's wild. And then like there's Sabbath reissues, they're like $80 or something like that, and
Right.
people are buying it. It's crazy.
Well, I think everything's relative.
Mhm.
If you and me are close in age, you're in your
Yeah.
40s or 50s.
No, I'm 50.
Okay. So I'm
I'm
57.
long in the tooth.
If I would have sold, if you and I would have been working at some random job 25 years ago,
Right.
working in an office, I was like, hey, dude, go get us 2 coffees.
Hmm.
You'd run to 7-Eleven, and for
Mhm.
99 cents each, you'd bring
Right.
us back 2 coffees. I got it. No problem.
Right. Right.
Now, run into Starbucks. Oh, fuck. Here's
Right.
20.
Yeah. Right.
You get a
Crazy.
drink. It's $7.50. Throw a snack next to it, a cookie, and suddenly it's $13-14. So
Right.
to think that we're literally paying $10 or $15 for a cup of coffee. People are
Mhm.
literally going into, the Starbucks 3, 4, 5 days a week in the morning. And if you go back to 20 years ago, it's like the only place coffee existed was in the break room at work with the little Mr. Coffee thing,
Mhm.
Oh, we're out of filters. Somebody go buy filters,
Right.
and you put the Folgers in, and it's too strong, it's too weak,
Yeah.
make a new one. Now, people have just adapted. You go into Starbucks, a couple of people, it's $20. You got 3 or 4 people with you, it's $30-40, and everyone's got a coffee, an iced coffee with some frap on it or whatever.
Right.
It's the same thing with a vinyl record or even t-shirts. When we sell shirts at shows now, it's like it's a minimum of $20. You
Right.
can't go any lower than that. The cost is too much. And then you got to give one to the security guy and give one to this person and one to this person, and so you got to mark it up. I mean, just like the vinyl,
Right.
shipping it.
Oh
To
yeah.
ship one vinyl record to Europe
Mhm.
costs like $27.
Oh yeah. It's crazy. And even media mail in the United States has taken a hike, a price hike.
$3.54. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. And as you're talking about t-shirts, I know
Oh, it seems like it's been a couple years, but I know it's been longer than that. I got comped to go do a review of the Eagles. Well, it wasn't really the Eagles, because Glenn Fry's not in the
Right,
band, but
right.
I was seeing these 65, 70-year-old dudes walking out with like 2 t-shirts, on their arm. And I'm like, they're almost $80.
Right.
Whew. Crazy. So yeah, times have changed.
Yeah, and the thing is, I remember, buying our records, and it was, I bought Shout at the Devil for probably $5.99. Gatefold, the whole deal. Now, but I'm not one of those guys. When I was a kid, this happened.
Right.
It's just like,
Sure.
well, we're not a kid anymore. It's 40
Yeah.
years later. It's
Right.
30, 35 years later.
Yeah.
So things have, changed. We used to be able to go to the drive-through and buy what kind of combo for $5. Now you go through a drive-through and buy a combo, and it's 12, 13, 50.
No shit. But don't bullshit me. You don't eat that stuff.
Oh, I do.
Oh, you do? Holy
100%.
shit. Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah,
no way.
I like junk food. I like bad food.
Okay.
I like McDonald's. I like pizza. I like French fries, candy
Okay.
bars. I'll sit here on a Sunday. I try to eat good, during the week, but on Sunday during football games or watching UFC, sometimes I'll go to the store. I'll buy M&Ms, Juju coins, Butterfingers, all of it, and of course I feel like shit, at the end of the day. And I'm like, why did I eat that? But yeah,
yeah, no kidding. Oh, wow. So real quick, because you did touch on that football. I know you're a Packers fan. What do you think of the moves with the Packers and stuff like that? Do you think it's going to work out for them? It's hard to say.
I don't pay a ton of detail attention to what's going on in the offseason, but I am excited just to see where it goes. Because at this point, I was telling this to my buddy at the post office the other day. This season for Green Bay Packer fans will be the first season, probably since before Nirvana came out, that the Packers did not have Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre at quarterback.
Right.
It's been like 32 years or something.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there was somebody that started a game or two, a backup, when Rodgers, I think, was maybe even suspended, and then Jordan Love came in for a show or a game or two. But yeah, for the most part, the Packers have had 2 starting quarterbacks since 1991 or 92. And so that means that all those fans, even a guy that's, say, 40 years old, as an 8 or 9-year-old, he was watching Brett Favre. And then as he grew up, he watched Brett Favre and then eventually Aaron Rodgers. He's never known the pain of what the true Packer fans went through in the 70s.
So since you're the fan, you're keeping track. What was the how many years since Favre and now Rodgers?
It was either 91 or 92 when Favre.
That sounds about right. I mean, my oldest is going to be 29, and he's a Packers fan. So that's all he's known is Favre and Rodgers. Yeah.
Right.
Right. So that makes total sense.
It's going to be interesting. I'm curious to see where it goes, and I'm curious to see how Aaron Rodgers does in New York as well. I mean, he obviously convinced him to bring over a couple of his best receivers and a couple other players, which will help, but yeah, I don't know. Every year is different,
Now, don't tell me you're one of those guys that will now follow 2 teams now that Rodgers is in New York, New York Jet.
No, it's not that it's not like I didn't like Aaron Rodgers. I did, but I liked Brett Favre better.
Oh yeah.
When Brett Favre left, it is what it is. But at some point, if there's 2 teams in the league that most Packer fans hate the most, it's the Vikings and the Cowboys and the Bears. But the Bears haven't been competitive for so long, it doesn't even matter. But the Vikings always were competitive with us. And obviously the Cowboys knocked us out of the playoffs multiple years. There's always been disdain and, distaste and hate for the Cowboys and the Vikings. But you know what? Oddly and weirdly enough, when Favre went to the Vikings, I found myself rooting for him. I really did, because I liked him. And the fact that he basically, I think he wanted to go there and shove it down the Packers' throat. And at some point he kind of did. And he was one pass away from, he doesn't throw that interception across the middle against New Orleans. The Vikings go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was like a slugfest. I mean, he was like getting up and limping off, and it was like, man, this guy's going to really feel it tomorrow.
Well, if you remember, there was a thing that was investigated years later where the New Orleans Saints coaching staff basically said something like to whoever
What the
knocks
bounty,
Barb out of
right?
the game, you're getting
Yeah.
$5,000 bonus.
Right. Yeah.
And
Oh, what a bunch of bastards. I love the fact that Atlanta beat well, they didn't get very deep into the Super Bowl, but they beat the Vikings with Morton Anderson kicking that winning field goal,
right.
and got them to the Super Bowl. But I also enjoy, Atlanta going to Green Bay in the snow. Remember that game where Vic got knocked out and then he comes back and they beat Favre and the Packers.
I don't remember that, but I do remember it was. So Atlanta beat Minnesota. Is that when didn't Minnesota have a chance to win that game?
Yes,
and
they
something
blew
like
it.
The kicker was 17 for 17 the entire year, and he missed the last.
He missed
it doinked off the upright, right? And they didn't get to go.
Yeah, I mean that was just another one of those slugfest. I mean, again, they had Chris Chandler as quarterback, who's kind of not that great, but I mean, it was really a team effort. That's what won it. But yeah.
So, and is that the same year then that Atlanta went to the Super Bowl and they were murdering the Patriots for the first half?
No, wait a minute. No, that was years later with Matt Ryan.
I was going to say that was like, and then Atlanta was up 38-3 at half, and then the Patriots came back and beat them. I felt bad for Matty Ice on that one.
I feel bad for me too. I went out and walked my dog, and I come back into the house, and I wasn't gone long. It didn't take long for
a couple touchdowns.
For things to kind of take a turn for the worst. My kid, Packers fan, he goes, "Oh boy, you don't want to sit and watch this." I'm like, how far are they ahead now? And then that was the beginning of the end. So yeah. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, that was major disappointment. Right. But yeah, enough about football. Going back to the Tough and the album. I mean, I think you had been talking about times changing. Things have changed. I mean, back then you guys were on Dial MTV for "I Hate Kissing You Goodbye." I see the video on there. I'm like, who's this? And I was kind of on the fence because that was more of a ballady type tune, but that wasn't really representative of the band as a whole. So tell me about that, whether in retrospect, releasing that and the popularity of that particular tune, did it hurt or help the band in the long run?
It's in the middle, I mean, because here's the thing. For starters, that wasn't planned for the original single. The original single was the All New Generation. And we actually shot some live footage at a festival we did in Phoenix. KUPD festival. It was like Great White, LA Guns, Badlands, South Gang, Bang Tango, Tuff, whole bunch of bands. We shot live footage there for All New Generation. And then 2 weeks later, we were coming back to LA, and that big set was going to be for All New Generation, a performance of us on this big sound stage, and then some live clips mixed in with it. Well, what happened is some radio stations, K-Bear in Salt Lake, The Blaze in Chicago, IFC, I think what is it? Baltimore, or CCC, Hartford. There was like 5 or 6 major radio stations around the country that started playing the ballad, and it was getting a lot of, what they called it, phones, requests.
Right.
Big phones, high request song on the radio. So what happened is Atlantic literally told us at the last minute, like a week out, maybe less, "You're not doing All New Generation. We're shooting the ballad." So all the live footage for All New Generation kind of got scrapped. And now we go to the production of this big video set that you see on I Kiss Goodbye. Right. And instead of, doing our thing and jumping around and doing the rock song, now we're doing the ballad. So of course, then it gets edited, it gets, sent to MTV, and they add us into active rotation. So we got added into active rotation out of the box. Most bands in our position were played on Headbangers Ball first. Saturday night at 2:22 a.m., Kick Tracy, whatever, Mrs. Robinson, first play. We didn't get that. We were literally, our debut play was the follow-up to Enter Sandman's world premiere.
Oh.
Monday, whatever it was, July 26th or whatever, world premiere of Metallica, Enter Sandman, at 3 p.m. on the dot. And at 3:06, I Kissing Goodbye played. So that was our first play, and we were getting like 2-3 spins a day, prime time, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, maybe there'd be one at 5 in the morning, but we would get multiple plays per day in what they called active rotation. And then within a week or so, you know, we found ourselves on the countdown from 9 to 8 to 6 and went up the totem pole. But was it a, you know, a good thing? I mean, yeah, it was a great thing. You know, at that point, I believe MTV had a potential of 55 million viewers. So for us to be on, you know, following Metallica or Bon Jovi or Belle Biv DeVoe, whoever was popular that week, we were exposed to a lot of people. But there was also people that were like, that like the heavier stuff, that like, oh, they're like Nelson. Oh, they're like Warren. It's like Heaven. It's a ballad. Oh, it's a Poison ballad. You know, not all those people. I mean, some knew, but not all of them knew that, you know, Good Guys Were Black and God Bless this, you know, Spit Like This and Lonely Lucy. And there was more edgy rock and roll stuff on the record as well, just like any record. But that wasn't our choice. And it was also, falls into timing. At that time, Queensryche had their biggest song of their career, Silent Lucidity. Extreme, their biggest song of their career, More Than Words. That wasn't even a full band. It's just Bruno and Gary. You know, and the bass players in the back like this. Saigon Kick, Love Is on the Way.
Love Is on the Way.
Same thing. Mr. Big, same time, To Be With You. Stripped down ballad. So, you know, in Every Rose and Heaven, 18 in Life. So the label's thinking, this is the home run. Let's just, you know, it's getting the phones right now. Let's just put it out. So they pushed it out, and they did, and it created the buzz. It sold records. It created a little thing for a very short period, though, because at that same point, that's when Nirvana released Nevermind, and Smells Like Teen Spirit came onto the countdown. The same, like a week after we did.
That's crazy. Yeah, and how it didn't take
Nirvana
much time.
changed the landscape way more than Pearl Jam did, way more than Alice in Chains, way more than Soundgarden, way more than Tad or Mudhoney or any of those bands. It was Nirvana that really took what was kind of bubbling under and just took it like a rocket straight up.
Now, how much of this was happening? Because I know I've heard from other bands and speaking with them where the label had hired maybe some kids to kind of bump up the calls for requests. I mean, are you aware of that? Did that really happen?
Absolutely. All bands did it. We did it as well. If you remember, people remember this. When Slaughter shot their video for Up All Night, Bloss had these big bass drums.
Oh, that's right. The 1-800 number.
Like that was like 1-800 dial MTV or like request Slaughter or something. But at some point, I guess MTV made them blur that out.
Yeah,
you know.
And then I think they had replaced it for This Space for Rent or something like that, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I think something like that. Yeah.
But yeah, we had a fan club of people, you know, that we would send postcards to, and as soon as the single was released, you know, a postcard went out to 10,000 kids. Call your local radio station, demand Tough, I Hate Kissing Goodbye on Atlantic Records, single out, you know, June 28th, you know, 1991, request it now, call, dial it, you know, 1-800 dial MTV, demand Tough, you know. But everybody did that. Skid Row did that, Motley Crue did that, Poison. Of course, the bigger bands, once you're rolling, they don't need it as much. You know, but yeah, we definitely had that. And just noting what we were just talking about with that video, the live footage we did shoot for All New Generation pretty much was scrapped. But after everything fell apart, I ended up getting the raw footage from Cindy Kiefer and Renegade Productions. And after we were dropped from Atlantic, we edited the video. So when you look on YouTube, the video for All New Generation, that's the footage we shot for it.
Okay.
But we, you know, you can tell it's pro shot. There's some, you know, guys with cameras, and it's black and white and color, and it's at a big festival. But we ended up editing that together and releasing it because we never got the second video. They just kind of threw it to the side. But we dug the tapes out from the production company and used them.
Nice. Okay.
YouTube, you know?
Yeah, well, there you go. So I think my hope is to catch up with you a little bit down later in the year, because I know there's a special anniversary for Metal Sludge. So I think
Metal Sludge will turn 25 on September 1st. Launched in
So
1998, so it's the 25th anniversary in September.
that's crazy. That time really has flown, because I remember just registering to use the message board and causing all sorts of havoc, as everybody
Well,
does.
and the thing is, it's funny. That's one of the questions I get asked all the time, from fans of the band or fans of the site, or even other guys in bands who I've known or been associated with or acquaintances with at shows, and they'll just say like, so how'd you do that? Like, what was the plan? Like, what was the idea? Did you ever think, and it's like, I had this idea, decided, talked to my friend Sean about it. I said, dude, I have this great idea. These websites are becoming more popular. And of course, for those, under 30 or 35 that don't recall, there was no social media in the 90s or the 80s. And it, wasn't even really until the 2000s that mid 2000s, I think MySpace came out around 2001 or two. And then, Facebook was, after that, and YouTube was after that, and Twitter was after that, and Instagram was after that. But we didn't, none of those things existed. And I just, we were trying to get press. And I say we, meaning Tough, whatever, all of our bands. Metal Edge was not covering Bang Tango or Bullet Boys or any of those bands. They would cover the annual Rock Never Stops summer tour. Cinderella, Winger, Warrant, Slaughter, LA Guns. And the next year it would be Poison, Rat, Faster Pussycat, Firehouse, and Bullet Boys. It was just the same 3 or 4 bands that would do that tour every summer. And I was like, yeah, I want to give some love to, where's the guy from Sleazebees? What's Jim Gillette from Nitro up to? Let's find out where the singer from Kick Tracy went. Let's interview Frankie from King of the Hill, So I wanted to kind of give some, like, hey, remember this? Remember these guys? And it was just, something that it took off on its own, and me and Sean we were fans of Saturday Night Live. We were fans of Howard Stern. And so we kind of took the shticky, goofy, ball busting aspect of that. Like when somebody would go on Saturday Night Live and mock somebody, whether it's Kanye West or Justin Bieber or Donald Trump or Kim Kardashian, that's a rite of passage. Like, oh my God, they made fun of me on Saturday Night Live. I must be a celebrity now. So we started doing that on Metal Sludge, whether it was Janie Lane or Sebastian Bach. And of course, was some of it mean-spirited? Yeah, it was. But if you've ever had a crew of 5 or 8 guys you grew up with, or you hung out with, or you went to college with, or lived in a band house, what was that? That was a ball busting session. Pick your fucking shit up, dude. You're a pig, I mean, whatever it was. You're arguing over, anything in the kitchen, the living room, in the tour van and the bus backstage. A lot of it was, ball busting. Of course, it was also being done anonymously. And at some point, some people had thin skin. They got a little bummed out, but, and then it just took off. I mean, obviously what we were saying, what we were sharing, putting on the site was not something that just we thought. Everybody thought it. Everybody could connect with it. Everybody could relate. Yeah, I went and saw them. That guy was a total asshole in person. I can't believe what a dick. Fuck him. And then at the same time, there'd be the guy was the nicest guy ever. Wow. We sat in a pizzeria with him for 3 hours. I can't believe it. This guy sold 7 million records, and now I got to carry him to his hotel room because he's drunk. So there was fun stories, but I've said this for years. Everybody loves Metal Sludge until they're getting made fun of. Getting coverage is one thing, but suddenly if it's something that makes them look dumb, they got fired from a band, they quit, they got arrested, DUI, rehab. Now they don't want anybody to know about it.
No. Well, I got a slew of questions that I'm saving for the 25. But the last thing I want to leave you with, is there a particular username that stands out to you that you say, oh, I love that username? Any of the people on the message board, over the years? I mean, they may not be in existence anymore as far as deleted or have left or have moved on to another world.
Yeah, there's been some really clever ones. I'm sure you've seen, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. A lot of times it's, the people have kind of followed suit with what we did. We created these monikers.
Right.
And, I've told the story that we would take one rock star's first name and another rock star's last name. And, Janie Bon Neal, which is Janie Lane, and John Bon Jovi and Vince Neil. And then we did like Blackie's Enough. And so a lot of people would do these kind of things on the sludge boards, but they'd also start to incorporate, like instead of it being, is Jennifer Aniston, is her middle name Lee?
I think so. Might be.
So they do like Jennifer Lee Roth or something like that, or David Lee Aniston or something, so they start to mix, a rock star and a movie star or a model. And of course, some of it is just like, your band sucks is the guy's ID,
Right. Yeah.
So
it's funny, man. Yeah. So I think I went with Clifford Newstead for a while, as you know, the two bass players in Metallica.
Oh, that was you?
Yeah, yeah. But anyways, yeah. So, hey, man. So here's what I'll do. We're going to plug the links for the album so people can pick up the vinyl, any other content that you have, the sites, the merch. Yeah, there you go.
The Tough Glam Years on vinyl.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Which also turned out great. Also has a killer multiple page insert. The vinyl is like a black purple swirl. So there's vinyl in my stores, tons of shirts. I've always had people say, do you make bigger sizes? So this last few runs of shirts, I actually decided to print
like the
3 and 4X.
Okay, there you go.
I mean, I don't know if that's even, you can see that.
It's big. Yeah, it covers you up. Oh my gosh. Yeah. There you go.
So we have, everything from small, and of course, there's always the sludge.
Yep.
There
you go.
From small to 4X.
Jeez. So you got everybody covered.
Yeah. I mean,
fantastic.
I've been meaning to ask Chris Aiken. Chris, will you fit the 4X? Because he's like, I'm a fat guy. I can't wear a 2X.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Well,
we'll see. Well, maybe he'll wear it on the show. It'd be cool to see him wearing a sludge shirt, man.
Yeah. And so, we're all getting bigger, there's been times when I could put a 2X on because an XL, sometimes after you put it in the dryer a few times, it's too tight around the shoulders. And I'm like, fuck, but yeah. So we got all kinds of swag, and there's vinyl and all kinds of other random stuff. There, of course, the full CD catalog and even some DVDs for the people that are still holding on to those. Those are in the sludge stores and the CDs.com store.
Yeah. So we'll plug all that stuff, man. Thank you for your time. I know you got you got some stuff going on later on in the year, and especially the sludge thing. I think we need to catch up for the Sludge 25. Got specific questions. I don't want to use those up now. I think I'll throw them in my memory banks, and we'll dig deep next time and maybe come up with a couple other things that I might have not thought of. So
Ruben, awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. I've watched a couple of your episodes, and I've watched you as a guest on a couple of the other shows. Like the Classic Metal Show. It's a good thing. You're doing a good thing.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, man. We'll throw this up online, and maybe you can use it, share it. And thanks for sharing the Karabi thing. That was cool, man.
Yeah. John's a good guy.
Thanks so much, man. Take care and safe travels, huh?
Okay, Ruben. Take care, bud.
Take care, man. Bye.
Bye.